Hello boys and girls, welcome to it. A bit of a different video this time. Thought now's the perfect time of year as we get further into 2021 to do a little bit of a bike check, I suppose. So here it is. Still running the same bike that I've pretty much ran for the entirety of this channel. It's the Trek Fuel EX8 from 2018. Now, some of you might be wondering what the difference is between the 2018 model and the 2021 model. And the answer is not very much. It's had a bit of a different paint job. I believe it's got a different fork on the 2021 version. But beyond that, it's pretty much the same. So why don't we go through what makes this bike in particular such a great bike for kind of all aspects of riding, from everything from cross-country to trail riding, enduro races even, and then obviously sending the odd drop or two, as we saw the other week at Boomerang Farm. Yeah, it's a pretty well-rounded bike. We've got 130mm travel on the rear, and we've got 130 at the front. Now that's probably on the lighter side for some, but for me, I think that pretty much fills all aspects, unless you're getting into the really gnarly, rocky, downhill stuff, or the big hitters, you know, the big pro lines that I really don't have any authority to be going anywhere near. Well, for context, before I bought this bike, I was riding what was it? An Avanti 100mm cross-country bike that I bought new in 2010. So, you know, a bike that was relevant 11 years ago. And a lot had changed since I bought that bike. Back then, there wasn't really 27.5-inch wheels or 29-inch wheels. It was all 26-inch wheels. And the thought of even buying a bike that isn't like a dirt jumper with 26-inch wheels is preposterous to many. Many have never even jumped on a bike that has 26-inch wheels, especially a lot of the new riders. They're jumping on their first ever mountain bikes. They're 27.5s plus, they're usually 29ers, you know, that sort of thing. But it was quite the surprise going from 26 to 29, not even bothering to stop at 27.5. It actually blew me away when I first got on it, and the first trail ride, of course, was at Daisy Hill. Ever since then, I've believed that this bike is pretty much capable of doing everything, except for, of course, downhill stuff. So why don't we go through some of the new stuff that I've put on for this year, or at least recently. So I guess the first thing we can look at, the very basic thing, is I got a new bottle cage. It's actually a really nice cage. The other one was going great until it decided to snap in half. So that became essentially useless. It was just a cheap plastic one. So I decided to get something a little bit nicer, and I went for a titanium, you know, save like, I don't know, 4 grams or something compared to the alternative. It was a bit pricey, I will say, especially for what it is, but I think it looks pretty slick, and it holds a bottle. So what more can you ask for, really? And it kind of matches the colors. I don't know. I think it's nice. The biggest upgrade that I've had to this bike ever is I finally got rid of that horrible dropper post that came stock with the bike. And that was a Bont Rager dropper post, and it worked quite well for the first few months, and then it developed this issue where it would extend up like a dropper would, but it would only reach maybe 85% to 90% of the full extension, and you'd have to kind of yank the seat up to get it to that full 100%, and it just became, it was too much. It was okay for a while, and then I just got over it, and I'm like, right, I'm gonna go get a new dropper post, and that's exactly what I did. And I went for the 1UP version 2, and this thing's beautiful. It's actually not outrageously expensive if you compare it to something like a RockShox or a Fox dropper post. And in my mind, it competes just as well, if not better, than some of the other offerings from the big players. I went for the 180 mil, which I think works quite well, given the frame. I wouldn't want it any shorter, that's for sure. If I had more of an enduro style bike where you might be a bit further back and you really need to get that seat up higher, I would probably opt in for the 210 millimeter, which is the largest size they offer. But for this bike, this fits perfectly. And as you can see, I've actually got it fully slammed. And fully slammed allows me to get the exact optimum height for pedaling efficiency, which I thought was great. It couldn't have gone better in that regard. And the great thing about this as well is it has an adjustable, what would it be? A canister, a chamber where you hold all your PSI. It can be adjusted anywhere from 250 PSI to 300 PSI. And I opted for the higher end of that scale. And it really gets the seat up there. It shoots up, at least compared to my old dropper post. And yeah, I can't really, like, it looks nice. I mean, it's a dropper post. They all look nice. And yeah, no complaints whatsoever. I think it was a great investment. And I'm not going to have those headaches where I'm going up some chunky climb and I really need to get my seat up and I got to do the whole grab the bars with one hand and yank the seat up and try not to crash, which I've almost done a few times. So let's call this an investment in my safety. Beyond that, not too much else has changed this year. A few parts that I did add on towards the middle and late of 2020 was I got some new pedals. I opted for, once again, the 1UP, and I went for the nice expensive ones. I can't remember what they're made of. Not the composite ones. Although I did actually, this year, completely unrelated, I did buy the composite ones to put onto the gravel bike. And they run fantastically. Fantastically? Is that a word? They run great. But yeah, these are great. They grip like anything. And they've got a bit of they kind of contour in. I find for where I generally place my feet, that gives me a great amount of grip when I combine it with my 510 free riders. I've never slipped off the pedals with that combo, the 1UPs and the 510s. Highly rated, especially if you're like me and really don't like the idea of clipping into pedals. I did get a new seat. Once again, that's in response to the stock seat that arrived with the bike. I opted for an Ergon. It was a semi-custom fit. I measured my tailbone and, you know, my hips and all sorts of weird things to get the right height. I remember the day I took it out for the first time. It was when I took Dan to Wanton. And as soon as I jumped on it, oh man, it was a complete different experience. The way it supports is so much more comfortable than my traditional. Actually, I might even have my old saddle here. And I'll show you what I mean. So here's the saddle that comes stock with the bike originally. And it's okay, but there's no real contouring on the saddle. So a lot of the pressure doesn't get relieved along here, which is kind of what you need. And you get pretty sore afterwards, even if you've got like a really nice bib or chamois on. It doesn't quite do the trick. So, you know, that's in the bin. See you later. I think I'm an Ergon guy now. Their saddles are good, man. That's all I gotta say. Yeah, another upgrade that I made to the bike from stock was I opted for some new tires. These are going great. In Queensland, for most of the year, it's dry, hot and dusty. So I went for something that had a bit of bite in hot, dry, dusty conditions, obviously. And I opted for the Maxxis on both ends. On the front, we have a Minion DHF. It's got the 3C Max Terra Exo, you know, those are words. And it grips. Like, there was a noticeable difference the first time I took it out, in the same way that there was a noticeable difference with the saddle. And on the rear, I've got the Aggressor, and that's got a, well, it doesn't have the 3C max turret, but it's got a EXO casing on it, and they seem to be holding up quite well. I've heard stories of certain compounds not lasting as long as others, but I mean, it still looks great to me. Both tubeless, of course, and one thing I do regret is I went for the 2.5 inches on both front and rear, and I really think I should have gone for 2.4s, possibly even 2.3s. Originally, the bike did come with 2.3, or maybe it was 2.35. I'm not quite sure. It was a lot smaller than these, and for when you're going up stuff, it feels a bit sluggish, or maybe that might just be me, really. On the down, like it's great on the down, but the trade-off, it can't. I feel like it just needs to go down to a 2.4. Not saying that the tires aren't great, because they are, but they're just a touch too big for the riding that I generally do, which is up and down most of the time. I want to talk about the rims, because I put these rims into I absolutely torture these rims, and it really shows, but credit where credit's due, especially on the rear. I'm a pretty heavy dude. I generally hover around 85 kilos, which is pretty heavy, but considering I'm also 6'3", it's kind of like, well, it's not overweight, thankfully. But the rear, like, I usually run maybe 28 PSI on the rear, which is quite a lot, considering they're 2.5s. But the rims, like, they've taken some absolute punishment. You know, squaring up rocks and casing things and roots and all sorts of stuff. And you can see it. There's a lot of dings, and we had to take it to the bike shop to get trued because it was all over the place. But I haven't broken it, which kind of surprises me on the rear. I'm not sure. These ones are the Line Comp 30s. And I feel like they're trail oriented. They're not enduro rims, they're not carbon rims, but they take the abuse, so credit where credit's due. You make a pretty solid rim trek. Beyond that, no, that's it. That's the bike I'm probably going to be running for the rest of the year. It's great. It really gets the job done. If you're looking at this bike, take this as testament for the goods and the not so goods of your potential purchase. And I guess while we're here, why don't we talk about plans for the channel, and maybe even plans for, you know, the rest of 2021 in particular. So obviously more content to come, as always. So I'll give you a bit of backstory. So right now, I'm filming this in an apartment, and it's a nice apartment, but if any of you have lived in apartments in Australia, it might be a bit different in Europe. They're pretty small. And I'm on the larger side of apartment living, and I'm able to just squeeze this in and get the camera set up here. It's not ideal. Sarah and I were looking at possibly moving into the suburbs a bit more, because I really want to bring you a bit more variety content, you know, discussions, reviews, that sort of thing. It can be hard. Like this took about an hour to set up. And I'd love to have some permanent space, maybe like a workshop or something like that, get all that going. But as things would turn out, everyone decided to move to Queensland this year, and we're having a really hard time finding anything appropriate to rent. We both work in the city, or very close to the city, and we want to live, just like everyone else, we want to live somewhere that is realistic to commute to our jobs to. We're looking at places like Indooroopilly, around that area, you know, to the west of the city. I think it would be quite nice, but there's nothing, dude. So we'll put that on the back burner for a few months, we'll reevaluate, and who knows, you really don't know what's going to happen. Like, if you told me last year that every single person and their dog will be moving up to Brisbane to escape, well, what I suspect is escaping Sydney and Melbourne because of the whole, you know, everyone's working from home. We'll see if that lasts. Even some of the stuff up you know, towards the Sunshine Coast and down the Gold Coast. Such high demand, but let's not stray too much. This is a bike channel. We're not a finance or real estate channel. Not yet. So yeah, what do you think of the bike? Are there any parts that you think I should upgrade? It's hard. I feel like I want to upgrade the forks at some stage, but at the same time, the cost to benefit, it doesn't quite weigh up. It's hard for me to know if this is a great fork or not, just because what I was going from was a 2009 100mm cross-country fork. So there isn't really much standing ground for me to stand on giving an opinion on if that's good or not. And another thing, if you want any of these new parts that I've been talking about, like the pedals, the dropper post, amazing dropper post, I'll leave a link in the description down below. There'll be most likely affiliate links. So if you decide to purchase, it'll help me out a little bit, and I appreciate you. Let me also know what you think below in the comments, and like and subscribe. Oh, everyone does this. I should probably not do it, but I'm falling into the trap of recommending you subscribe to the channel for more content. Anyway, that's it. The bike. Let's go have some fun. 2021 will be a better year. See you guys at the trails.